The more and more we talk of how climate change made these wildfires worse than they could have been, the problem here is also the man-made factors. More and more blame seems to be coming on man-made factors. Everything from a lack of water to these companies whose sparks, whose flames could have ignited the fire.
Absolutely. Good evening to everyone, and I'm glad that we're discussing something from Los Angeles in a global lens. But these problems, what has been seen across the California, is not new to major parts of Asia as well. In Asia, we have something called as forest fires. And let's try to decode forest fires or wildfires and what triggered it. A lot of these has been linked into climate change. Climate change is actually one of the biggest reasons to trigger these wildfires, to kind of aggravate these wildfires. It's because the seasons are becoming drier and drier. And as a result, your aquifers or the soil moisture quantity is kind of drying up. As a result, whenever there is the Los Angeles fires has been linked into the sparks that came out from the industrial hubs. Whenever you have little spark, it kind of links to the larger preothra of events turning into disaster, and that's what it happened. But to be precise, this drought in California is again not something what is very new. There has been emerging drought issues, and when we say drought, it's primarily the soil moisture, so the soils kind of becoming more and more drier. And as a result, what is happening is these fires are aggravating, but at the same time, our infrastructures are not ready to cope with these cascading impacts. Droughts, when you have droughts, you have drier seasons, water supply becomes a challenge, you try to address it. But on top of it, once you have wildfires, it becomes an enormous disaster. And that's what has been happening in Los Angeles. These are all linked together. This is more man-made than natural-made. But more importantly, what is missing from so-called developed countries like USA is understanding the hypergranular risk and ignoring these signals largely. And that's what is a kind of issue and major concern, because it seems that the political will around managing these forest fires and these wildfires largely seem to be very low. And there were news that such kind of drier season alerts were already there. It might link to wildfire. Those alerts were ignored, and as a result, what is happening is you have got days continuation of series happening, and that's what leading to ravaging of lives, livelihood, more importantly, infrastructures and economies, and all of these are kind of aggravating the situation. So climate change is at the focal point or at the epicenter, but on top of it, it's largely a mismanagement, poor governance, and ignoring the signs that nature also comes up with its own doomsday.
Right. Stay with us, Avinash. These wildfires are not exactly isolated incidents, but part of a larger year-round pattern exacerbated by climate change, urban sprawl, and aging infrastructure. As California prepares to host the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics, these disasters raise urgent questions about the city's readiness to manage natural and man-made challenges on a global stage.
The upcoming 2028 Los Angeles Olympics is drawing fresh scrutiny as wildfires, climate change, and infrastructure challenges raise critical questions about the city's readiness. California is no stranger to wildfires, but the year-round nature of these disasters has turned the state into a tinderbox. The Palisades fire has devastated parts of Malibu, evoking distressing scenes of destruction that many experts say are sadly predictable. The upcoming games bring the conversation back into focus, especially with July offering no reprieve from wildfire risks. The city is grappling with not only natural disasters but also man-made challenges. Wildfires fueled by Santa Ana winds and exacerbated by climate change continue to scorch fire-prone regions. Compounding the problems are issues of urban sprawl and outdated zoning laws that have pushed communities closer to high-risk landscapes. Even President Joe Biden also warned recovery efforts may take billions.
Although the federal government is going to cover 100% of the cost for the next 180 days for things like firefighter overtime pay, debris removal, temporary shelters, it's going to cost tens of billions of dollars to get Los Angeles back to where it was.
Energy infrastructure poses another risk. While California has made strong strides in renewable energy, strong winds and down power lines remain a leading cause of some of the state's worst wildfires. Critics argue more needs to be done to modernize and secure the grid. Even LA Mayor Karen Bass has noted logistical hurdles in ensuring public transit for athletes and spectators, raising concerns about disasters preparedness.
Predicting close to hurricane force level winds, and so we're making urgent preparations. My top priority and the priority of everyone else is to do everything we can to protect lives. As these winds approach, LA City firefighters and firefighters from across the county, state, and nation, and even overseas, are in a proactive and strategic posture to save lives. Firefighting resources from LAFD and fire departments from all over are positioned in strategic holding locations. DWP is deploying water tankers to augment water supply for firefighters.
Efforts are currently underway to mitigate these issues, including electric buses and solar energy projects aimed at achieving a net zero emission event. But the spectre of smoke, poor air quality, and potential disasters loom large for outdoor events. Experts now emphasize that these wildfires should serve as a wake-up call for event organizers to adapt to climate realities. As the world now prepares to watch the 2028 Olympic, Los Angeles stands at a crossroads. Will the Games be a showcase of resilience or a cautionary tale? Only the time will tell.
As the fires rage on, California stands at crossroads. These disasters highlight the urgency of addressing climate realities, improving infrastructure, and holding accountable those whose negligence exacerbates risks. Will the state emerge as a model of resilience? That's the big question. With the eyes of the nation and the global community fixed on California, the response in the coming months will shape not only the recovery, but also the lessons learned from this unprecedented wildfire season. We have Abhinash Mohanty, Global Sector Head, Climate Change and Sustainability at IPA Global, and Chandra Bhushan, President and CEO, iForest International Forum for Environment, Sustainability and Technology, joining us as well. Chandra Bhushan, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us. We were just discussing about how, while there is all this talk of how climate crisis has exacerbated these wildfires, the fact that the region has topography that is prone to wildfires should have made authorities far more capable of handling these fires, far more prepared. But that was not the case. You have water supply in short water in short supply from February 2024 onwards that hasn't been addressed, and the fact that some of these fires were caused by human recklessness more than anything else.
Well, absolutely. Why this has become a big news, because it is Hollywood, okay? But the fact of the matter is that fire and forest fire is now a reality across the world. We have had devastating forest fire in Australia, in Canada, the Mediterranean countries every year now, more or less, are from Greece to Portugal, to Spain, are now getting, even Italy, are getting affected by wildfire. In fact, if you look at Forest Survey of India report, our own country, then in last couple of years, forest fire incidents are increasing. So the clear manifestation of climate crisis is the fire. It is almost like Dante's Inferno. We all can see what is happening. But California specifically, there are areas which are fire prone. California is one of them. Australia, the eucalyptus plantation in Australia are fire prone. So there are areas where people know that these areas are going to burn because of seasonal fire seasons. Obviously, urbanization has not been planned very well in California. Rich people are going to areas where they should not go, and the city is not prepared to deal with this kind of forest fire. But the fact is, no country is prepared right now to deal with the kind of forest fire that will happen because of climate crisis. No country. And we are seeing it every year, the preparedness of countries, the lack of infrastructure, the rapidity and spread of these fires are unprecedented. And this is going to get worse in the future. I do believe that in next couple of years, we will see these kind of fires as common thing happening world over, at least in areas which are fire prone.
Right, Abhinash, areas which are fire prone like LA, that's where the focus is, and why it wasn't exactly prepared for an eventuality like this. The problem here is that, forget about the fires getting worse in the next 2 to 3 years. They're meant to get worse in the next 2 to 3 days.
Absolutely. Now, what Chandra highlighted, that it's not just a problem of California or Los Angeles. It's actually a problem across the globe, and our own India has been grappling with issues of forest fires of late. If you look at the data, we are establishing climate risk observatories at IP Global, and that climate risk observatory links intrinsically into the number of incidents at forest fires. And what we can see clearly is that the forest fire events have been increasing around 3.5 to 4x in just last 10 to 15 years. And that's where the cause of concern is that we always look at these events as standalone events. And we never kind of never investigate nor understand or acknowledge that one problem can lead to the other. The drought issue in Los Angeles or across the Australian belt has been worsening, and this worsening has been happening not today or yesterday, but almost 2 decades ago. And if we would have anticipated that these dry seasons a small spark can lead to such a massive fire, then probably we could have been better prepared. Now, the Olympics is at stake. It's not just Olympics, it's massive kind of events, outdoor events which have been planned are at stake. And we're clearly not prepared because we don't link one. We always look at these events as standalone ones, have some conversations, but never look at it as a compounding, cascading impact. You need to treat this as an health emergency kind of situation. If you have got blood pressure and diabetes, then your COVID situation kind of aggravates. Similarly, climate change is there, but similarly, if you have got drought-like situation or droughts across, then that might lead to forest fire, wildfires, a larger plethora of events of water-led toxicity, soil toxicity, leading into your agricultural food chain. So you need to start mapping those value chains, understanding them, decoding them, and then enacting faster, not like looking up in a proactive way, in a reactive way, rather looking at more in a proactive way, when you have to plan it properly and then kind of map it properly, plan it properly, and then start adapting to it. Then only we can see real actions. But at core of it, what largely lies behind is a large political will to strive some of these actions and make our cities, our kind of districts, states, and countries more climate ready. More importantly, we need to build that readiness through some of the systematic actions, not through a blinkered approach.
Right, Chandra, he was talking about the fact that, the wildfires are not exactly a non-existent phenomenon in India. Here in India, we deal with it. Talk to us in terms of what are the lessons that can be learned from all that's gone wrong in Los Angeles for India and for the rest of the world. There are concerted efforts because of water levels rising across the world, because so many cities are under threat of going underwater, and there are alternate plans being made and mitigation efforts being done. And if rising water levels are a problem, these forest fires are an equal problem.
Well, there are many, many impacts of climate crisis. The lesson that we must learn from Los Angeles is that the richest country in the world also cannot handle the kind of impact that will happen because of climate crisis. Okay. I think the first learning is you might be the richest country, you might be one of the richest, regions in that country and people and the most rich people in the world. But climate is not going to spare any of them. Okay, number one. So money is not going to solve the problem. Number two is that the kind of the spread of the fire, the intensity and the spread is such that we every country will have to look at their fire preparedness status, because now fire is getting combined with, almost in California, almost like a hurricane level wind. So it's a combination of elements which is coming together. You have drought, you have dry condition, you have higher temperature, you have higher wind, and then any of the human element will lead to massive fire. This is what has happened in California. So the other point to understand is that there's going to be multiple factors which is going to come together. And California wildfire, for that matter, what happened in Canada last year or in Australia, very clearly shows that we now have to think about multiple things coming together to create these crises. As I said, drought and dry weather, high wind, everything will come together. And the last point is that we have to start sharing knowledge and information across the world. California must learn from how Canada is handling wildfire, or for that matter, how Australia is. Wildfire in India is of a very different nature. Because of the fragmented nature of our forest, we might not have large spread of wildfire of, say, 10,000 hectares. But we still have a small, Uttarakhand, if you look at last year, what happened in Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh, specifically Uttarakhand, we had large number of small fires. Okay. In fact, it had impact on air quality in city like Delhi. So there has to be much more understanding and sharing of knowledge on how countries will address wildfire. And most importantly, I think that the way we are developing our urbanization, for example, in Los Angeles, it's a clear case of reckless urbanization.
Right.
People are going where there's going to be fire.
Right.
Okay. And I think planning and zonation is going to become equally important. We should not allow people to go where there's going to be fire. Okay. So both urban planning and zonation, regional planning is going to be an important part of how do we deal with the climate crisis.
Right.